Good morning. My name is Kimberly Eds. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Orange County District Attorney's Office. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. The speakers at today's press conference will be in the following order: Orange County District Attorney Todd Spitzer, Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex Villanueva, ATF Assistant Special Agent in Charge Michael Hoffman, Brea Police Chief Adam Howley, Orange County Board of Supervisor Chairman Doug Chafee. We'll take a few questions after the final speaker, and I'll provide information on the arraignment and copies of the complaint. Thank you.
First of all, my name is Todd Spitzer. I'm the district attorney. Before I start, I want to thank all the participants. On Friday, we held an event talking about the arrest of Malik Pat and Jason Payne on Friday through the cooperation of multi-jurisdiction law enforcement. You're going to hear about some of that today by ATF and Sheriff Villanueva, but I'm extremely proud of the fact that there was a major crime spree as outlined here in the posters showing the locations of a lot of these various robberies that happened on July 11th. And I'm going to talk about another crime we'll be charging that happened July 9th in Los Angeles. But the fact that law enforcement came together and seamlessly worked in a cooperative fashion is unbelievable in the sense that everybody took this so seriously, because it's very, very serious. So today I'm going to be talking about the charges the Orange County District Attorney's Office will be filing in this case with respect to the two defendants that are in custody, Malik Pat, who's 20 years old, and Jason Payne, who's 44. Before I do that, I want to introduce the lead prosecutor on this case, Seton Hunt. I also have other prosecutors here that I want, Troy Pino, who is the head of court for homicide, Pat Dixon, who is a senior assistant district attorney, who also worked on this case. I want to specifically thank Jeff Moore and Mina Gurgis for working with the team throughout the weekend because they did a phenomenal job. And I mean, from the time of the arrest until the time of the complaint, we didn't miss a beat. Let me first talk about Malik Pat, the 20-year-old. Malik Pat is a stone cold serial killer. There's no other way to describe him. He executed innocent people and he shot others. And his behavior and the crime spree he engaged in is literally, I just got chills up my own spine. It's chilling. I've been doing this work for over 3 decades, and to see somebody who could just kill people in cold blood like this it's just unfathomable. It's scary. I mean, we know that the community was paralyzed during this crime spree. Every time he walked into a donut shop or a convenience store, the clerk behind the cash register had no idea the death and destruction that he had already left in his path or he was about to do to that particular employee, and they could have been his next target in somewhere. He could have kept killing, and I'm convinced, based upon what we know now and what we're working on, he would have kept killing because he had a complete disregard for human life. Instead, he chose to kill whoever and whenever he wanted, and if he had kept killing, or if he would have kept killing if it wasn't for the amazing work of these teams behind me and all the men and women who are on the front lines working under their leadership. This is law enforcement at its best under one of the cruelest, most inhumane set of crimes I've ever seen. They worked together to ensure that these violent criminals were taken off the street, and now it's our job as the prosecutors and Mr. Hunt and his team to prosecute these individuals to the fullest extent of the law. So today I'm here to announce special circumstance murder charges against 20-year-old Los Angeles resident Malik Pat and robbery charges against his 44-year-old neighbor, Jason Payne. I'll break this down in terms of the specific crimes. I'll describe them generically first. We have 3 felony counts of murder with special circumstances. The facts of the special circumstances engaging in multiple murders. That's a special circumstance factor. 2 counts of attempted murder with personal discharge of a firearm causing injury, 3 felony counts of robbery with an enhancement for the personal use of a firearm, 1 felony count of carjacking while personally armed, and 2 additional special circumstance enhancements of murder in the commission of a robbery. We also have 3 enhancements for personal discharge of a firearm causing death. That makes Malik Pat eligible for death or life without the possibility of parole. We expected his arraignment, since we've charged special circumstance murder, that he will be held on no bail. I want to break down those crimes for you because the community is very familiar. Let's talk about the murder on July 11th in Santa Ana. That case for the murder is the special circumstances of multiple murder, so having committed multiple murders in the same for the same proceeding. That makes Malik Pat eligible for death or life without the possibility of parole. And then also the enhancements of the personal use of the firearm. There was a robbery in Santa Ana. That's a separate and distinct charge, and that enhancement is with the personal use of a firearm. On July 11th, there was a murder in Brea. We're all familiar with that. He's being charged there with multiple murder and felony murder special circumstances, which makes him eligible there for death, life without the possibility of parole, and the personal discharge of a firearm causing death. That can add to life without the possibility of parole another 25 years because of the personal use of a firearm causing death. On July 11th of this year, we have 2 counts of first-degree attempted murder. That's 2 separate victims in La Habra with the personal discharge of a firearm. Those enhancements add 20 consecutive years for the personal discharge. We have a count of robbery, and then we have the 1 count of carjacking. After the robbery, he commissioned a vehicle, and that vehicle was used to take him back to the layoff vehicle where Mr. Payne was awaiting. This is where things get interesting in terms of the LA County crimes I'll be bringing. On July 9th, Malik Pat is charged and accused of murdering a homeless man in North Hills in LA City. We are charging that crime here in Orange County with special circumstances for multiple murder, and that makes him eligible for death, life without the possibility of parole. And then after he killed that homeless man, but just prior to allegedly killing the homeless man, he had just engaged in a robbery in North Hills. We're charging that robbery too, because it was concurrent with the murder in that location. So I want to mention that. I've also, on Friday, I talked about the other out-of-county crimes. So we have an Upland crime in San Bernardino and an Ontario crime. Those crimes are not eligible because they're robberies for us to prosecute those San Bernardino crimes here in Orange County. But I've talked to Jason Anderson, the district attorney, and he plans to file those charges, and then there will be warrants issued for the arrest of Malik Pat and Jason Payne, and he'll process those crimes when we finish our case here in Orange County. With respect to the robbery, attempted murder in Riverside County, Riverside City, I've talked to Mike Hestron, the district attorney there, my counterpart, and many of you know the victim is in dire condition. The victim appears to be sustaining his life through intervening means, medical means. And so we will be monitoring that victim's status, and we're hoping and praying that that victim will recover and that it is an attempted murder and not a murder. Let me now shift to Jason Payne. Jason Payne is 44 years old. There's a relationship between Malik Pat and Jason Payne. We're still exploring that. It doesn't appear to be blood or familial. It appears to be a long-standing relationship of 2 individuals who lived on the same street in Los Angeles. We're charging him with 3 felony counts of robbery and 1 felony count of attempted robbery in connection with the robberies that occurred in Santa Ana, which I've described, La Habra, and Brea, and an attempted robbery, Those all occurred on July 11th, 2022. So you may want to ask the question, how do we prosecute all these cases, especially the LA case here in Orange County? California state law allows that if you engage in a serial murder that occurred in other counties, we can consolidate those prosecutions in a single county in the interest of judicial efficiency and to prevent the victims or other witnesses from having to endure multiple court proceedings in different jurisdictions. I do want to say for the record, you're going to hear from ATF. ATF was the one that worked with LAPD to investigate the murder in North Hills, and they brought that as a federal agency to us. I have been a member and my investigative bureau member of ATF's task force since its inception. And it's very, very important that we work with our federal partners. Some of you were here when I announced the cross-designation of a federal prosecutor, Orange County prosecutor to be a federal prosecutor with the U.S. Attorney to prosecute fentanyl murder cases. So this office, unequivocally, I just want to make this clear, we are a very aggressive prosecutorial office, and we will continue to be a very aggressive prosecutorial office. So at this time, I'm going to ask Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex Villanueva to make his comments.
Thank you and good morning. Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department's Major Crimes Bureau Burglary Robbery Task Force has been a partner of the Orange County Violent Crimes ATF Task Force for over 10 years now. We have worked several significant state and federal investigations over the years, including a Southern California gun store burglary ring, a violent high-end jewelry and watch store robbery series, and other high-profile, high-risk investigations. It's been a tremendously successful partnership with benefiting both Los Angeles County, Orange County, and all agencies and cities therein. The Orange County ATF Violent Crimes Task Force is comprised of extremely tenacious and professional investigators, and the partnership over the years is much appreciated by members of the LASD. On Monday, July 11th, the LASD's Major Crimes Bureau Burglary Robbery Task Force began to work with a full commitment to the Orange County ATF Violent Crimes Task Force in its recent investigation into the horrific murders and robberies. Investigators believe that these same suspects were involved in 2 additional robberies in Los Angeles County. Prior to the suspect arrest, the Burglary Robbery Task Force conducted hundreds of hours of surveillance and intelligence gathering with and for the Orange County ATF Violent Crimes Task Force. These 2 task forces worked nearly nonstop into the early morning hours throughout Southern California until the arrests were made on Friday afternoon. The Burglary Robbery Task Force and LASD Aero Bureau was present and assisted with the tactical and safe apprehension of the suspects on Friday afternoon. Additionally, LASD units that were assisted in the investigation were our Special Enforcement Bureau's K-9 team and South Los Angeles Station's Summer Enforcement team. The teamwork, cooperation, and professionalism of all involved is responsible for bringing these 2 suspects into custody quickly and safely. This, with the added expert detective work of all the detectives working this case, will hopefully assure the successful prosecution of 2 violent predators terrorizing innocent working-class Southern California residents. The Burglary Robbery Task Force will continue to cooperate and assist in determining if the 2 Los Angeles County robbery cases can be attributed to these suspects. Residents in Orange and Los Angeles County are safer due to this cooperative teamwork and partnership, where the law enforcement mission is more important than who receives credit. Criminals know no boundaries, and cooperation like this is crucial to keeping us all safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheriff. I can't emphasize enough Sheriff Villanueva's many points, but in particular the cooperation. Look, one of the things that I'm sure you're going to ask questions about is the other defendant, Mr. Payne. And the sheriff and I have been very, very outspoken and vigorous advocates about the changes in state law. And the one change in state law that affects our case with Mr. Payne is the elimination of the natural and probable consequences theory under murder. The legislature took that away. So just being merely present at a scene without necessarily having the evidence to prove intent is a tool the legislature took away from us. And they're taking that away from us is making our streets less safe. And I would really urge the legislature to redebate the natural and probable consequences law, because that's a tool that we need as law enforcement and prosecutors to keep our community and state safe. At this time, I'd like to introduce Michael Hoffman with Alcohol and Tobacco Farms and Explosives, ATF. He's the Assistant Special Agent in charge. Mr. Hoffman.
Thank you, DA Spitzer. With me with the ATF is my counterpart, Assistant Special Agent in charge, Steve Galloway. On behalf of the men and women of ATF and the Orange County Violent Crime Task Force, I would like to express my sincere sorrow for the pain and suffering all the victims and their families continue to endure. And I hope the actions of DA Spitzer and his office can bring you some comfort today. The ATF-led Orange County Violent Crime Task Force was formed over 5 years ago with Fullerton, Brea, and Santa Ana police departments, along with the Orange County District Attorney's Office. And the sole purpose was to investigate violent serial robberies occurring across the Southland. And we do that through additional partners such as the LA County Sheriff's Department's Major Crimes Bureau, particularly their surveillance units and air assets. And our job has never been more important than now. The level of random violence we're seeing throughout society is totally unacceptable. It seems as if you can't even go to the supermarket to purchase groceries, to a 7-Eleven to purchase a cup of coffee, or even to go to school to learn to read or write without suffering the dire consequences of gun violence. As a society, we cannot accept this, and ATF will certainly not accept this. ATF and our partners will dedicate any and all resources to target, investigate, and assist in the prosecution of anyone depraved enough to commit these heinous acts. And that is exactly what we are doing today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Chief Hawley and I participated in an event Friday announcing the arrests. I want to thank Chief Hawley as he comes up to, I want to just express my gratitude. He's one of the leading chiefs in this county. Paul Walters is here, the chief of my bureau, who, as you all know, was the Santa Ana police chief for many, many years and was incredibly active in laying the foundation for these kinds of task forces and going after these kinds of hardened and career criminals. Chief Hawley.
Thank you and good morning. On behalf of the Brea Police Department and all of our law enforcement partners involved in this outstanding task force, we'd like to offer our sincere thanks to District Attorney Todd Spitzer and the men and women of his office for their diligence in filing these charges against the suspects. And we will continue to work closely with the DA's office moving forward for this prosecution. I'm convinced that through these collaborative efforts with the District Attorney's Office and the other involved agencies, that we will help to bring some sense of closure and justice to our victims and our victims' families. I am proud of the collaborative multi-agency partnership with ATF and our local law enforcement partners, the La Habra Police Department, Fullerton Police Department, Santa Ana Police Department, LASO, and the DA's office. Their partnership and the relationships that we built have led to this successful conclusion and these arrests. In closing, again, on behalf of my agency and the agencies involved, we offer our deepest condolences to the families and the victims in this case. We all remain with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Hawley. A real leader here in Orange County is the Board of Supervisors Chairman Doug Chafee. He's going to make an announcement about some action. It's my understanding the board may take tomorrow, but I just want to let you know that as a district attorney, anytime I have asked for any resources that we need to properly run our agency in order to be effective prosecutorial agency and California, if not the nation. The chairman of the board has always said yes. Would you please, Doug Chafee, please?
I couldn't believe how rapidly different agencies came together, 3 counties, multiple cities, ATF, the district attorney's own task force, and how rapidly they came together to solve this horrible incident that was happening on the street. I was discussing with my colleagues at that time the possibility of putting up some money as a incentive, as a reward for information leading to the arrest or conviction of the people who were perpetrating these crimes. But they did such a good job of getting this done so rapidly, we were not able to take that action. So instead, tomorrow we'll be talking about using that same money and perhaps some more to establish a victims relief fund. Our hearts go out to these victims. They did nothing wrong. They just happened to be where they were, serving people, doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's so hard to imagine these neighborhood stores where you might go buy a loaf of bread, have a cup of coffee. You go there and you experience violence. So I commend the district attorney for his working expeditiously to ensure the proper steps are taken, which he's doing, so the suspects are brought to justice and, in due course, answer their crimes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This time, I'm happy to take questions. Vicki? Yeah. Probably not much.
Neighbors, anything more about MO? The only happened.
Okay, let me break this down. So we are obviously analyzing all the evidence, and we're putting together, I mean, think about how much has been put together in such a very, very short period of time. And we're all working around the clock because we want to make sure we examine every piece of evidence. It appears as if Pat and Payne were living on the same street and had a long-term relationship. The nature of that, I already indicated, it doesn't appear to be familial or blood-related, but it appears to be long enough established that there was some kind of significant kinship. So that's about what I can tell you at this point in time. In terms of the difference, it's, Pat engaged in like the most serious and aggravated and horrible crimes that a human being can effectuate on another living person. And what Payne's role was in that, he was present. We know he's present at the scenes, but not inside the locations and not so proximate. In other words, so close or with an eye view that we at this point can show that he knew, other than the robberies, that killings were involved. So that's the distinction in a nutshell for the difference in the charges. But we're still examining that. Does that make sense? I can't say. We are examining the evidence to determine what evidence that's admissible that we could utilize in order to connect that. But today, under our ethical duty as prosecutors, we can only charge based upon the evidence that we have. And we do know that Payne was present. I can't speak for the Los Angeles murder, but for the Orange County and the other Inland Empire, present, but a different kind of participant. So just so you know, with the changes in the law under the felony murder that I talked about, or natural and probable consequences, we have to prove 2 things now. We have to show that the person was a major participant to charge them for the murder, for example. And they also acted with reckless indifference to human life. And so the law is very specific, even though we're still litigating a lot of these issues throughout California. But with that change of natural and probable consequences, our ability to prosecute individuals based upon this idea that if you go along with somebody you know is going to commit a robbery and they're armed, it's a natural and probable consequence that somebody could get shot or killed. We've lost that tool because of the state legislature. Michelle? Oh, sorry about that, Kimberly.
Todd, can you please share whether these two engaged in past criminal activity together? Was that part of their quote unquote relationship? And also, can you talk about the two additional LA County robberies? Were they around this same time?
So the second part of the question I'll have the sheriff address. I can just tell you generically, and I said this Friday, we are connecting and trying to connect a lot of dots. There's potentially other crimes out there that either one or both may be responsible, and we're still working on all that evidence with the other agencies. ATF, put together the January 9th homicide, which quite frankly is, when we start getting to that evidence in court, I think you're going to be very, very impressed about how they put that together. I'm not going to discuss the particulars now, but a lot of this is just still being worked on. The good news with respect to at least Malik Pat is he's not going anywhere. So the robberies in Upland and Ontario, they're going to be able to issue warrants on that and take care of that. And the attempted murder of the victim in Riverside County, that also will follow behind our cases. And Sheriff, I don't know if you want to comment about any other cases you're working.
Actually, let me introduce Chief Joe Mendoza, who oversees our detective division.
Thank you. Our Major Crimes Bureau is continuing to work. There's a robbery that occurred within this time frame in the city of Whittier. The second case, also within the time frame, occurred. However, we're not going to divulge that. We're still working it. We're putting it together to present it for charges.
Do you know why some lives were spared in those games? Anything about what may have been said or any sort of exchanges between the suspects and the victims?
So obviously we'll be, if we have it, assuming we do, we will be offering that into court if it's deemed admissible. I'm not going to comment on any statements or anything that has come forward through the investigation or interviews at this time. This will all be handled in court, so I can't comment on that, Michelle.
Payne was the getaway driver, number one, and he knew Pat had a gun. Or did he know Pat had a gun? Did he hear shots fired? If he can prove that he heard shots fired at one location and he still went to other locations with him, is that enough to charge him with murder?
So you just gave me what we infamously referred to in law school as hypotheticals, which I love, quite frankly. And if all the things you potentially put out, Chip, become evidence, then it's a whole different analysis, right? What I heard, what I saw, things like that. We're investigating every single aspect of this case. I'm just sharing with you, as of this moment, what charges we can bring against Jason Payne. And so based upon the information that's reviewed, the reports that we have and the like, these are the charges we can ethically bring today. But if additional information becomes uncovered that is similar to what you potentially described, it changes the whole flavor of our analysis for sure. I believe he was not. I believe he was not the driver. I believe he was a passenger. Well, I think part of the reason when I talked about Jason Payne that showing his knowledge and whether he shared a reckless indifference or what he knew or didn't know, either before the crime or after the crime, would all depend on where he was in proximity to, say, a 211 occurring, a robbery occurring. So if you're in the carjacking in the La Habra case, a car was commissioned for a short period of time to take it back to the getaway car. But it's not our belief at this point that Jason Payne was the driver.
Do you have any, I'm so sorry, Ellie. Thank you. Do you have any evidence you can comment about whether it's a coincidence that it all happened on 7/11, or is that something also, again, that you're also working through?
So obviously I wanted to know that too. I mean, when this was happening, it was the 95th, I believe, birthday celebration of 7/11. And I think, a lot of people were very, very concerned, right, while these suspects were still outstanding to go to a 7/11. I know I certainly was concerned. And I told my kids, my daughter in particular, don't you dare go and get your free Slurpee or your dollar Slurpee today. But that's all part of the investigation. I can just say loosely, it doesn't appear to be a motive. It doesn't appear to be that was the catalyst for doing robberies at 7-Eleven. Doesn't appear to be. It appears it might have just been random and coincidental because remember we had Yum Yum Donuts, we had 7-Eleven, we had sandwich. So I think it was just places that are open long hours, sometimes 24, early morning hours, things like that.
We'll take one more question.
Yeah, go ahead, Vicki. ATF did, I didn't, but you're right. I was, yeah.
So can you get any more into the technology? And when you say connect the dots in round figures, how many other cases are you looking
So
at?
the answer to the first question is, can I comment in technology? And with respect, the answer is absolutely not. And two, with respect to the round numbers, I cannot even begin to speculate. I hope every agency is going to do everything they can to put every single crime together to try to get justice for every victim. I mean, we had a homeless individual in North Hills, which we're now charging, who his name hasn't even been released by the coroner. I still think they're working on his identity and notification of next of kin. So look, we have significant and serious charges to file here in Orange County, and we're doing our job, and we're encouraging every other agency, and they already are, to do everything they can to solve any other open DRs or any other cases they have.